Welcome back, y'all. This is video number 2 today, and we're going to be talking about something that we should all be keeping a very close eye out on in spring practice. That's Tennessee's RPO game. It's something that has changed in several different ways since 2022. And for me, that's like the litmus test for what this offense is doing. We got to get closer to 2022. And I think that Tennessee is going to do it this season. We got plenty of stats and some film breakdown for you in this one. As always, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. All right, y'all, we're going to start with an offensive outlook, and we're going to be comparing 2022 to 2023 and 2024. So looking at 2022, Tennessee passed the football 422 times. We ran it 523 times. That's a total of 945 plays. That's about 45% pass to 55% run. I think that that's very good balance. And as far as Tennessee's RPO game, we were running at about 36% of the time. That was second in the SEC. Keep in mind, 2022, 2023, there was only 14 teams in the SEC. 2024, there were 16. But we were running the football 75% of the time within our run-pass option game. That was third most in the SEC. And then we're passing it about 25% of the time. That was 12th most in the SEC, almost dead last. So let's take a look at 2023. Passed it 410 times. We ran it 489 times. That's a total of 899 plays. Obviously, that's 46 plays less than 2022. We know that the tempo slowed down in 2023 compared to 2022. And just as far as the ratio, about 45.6% pass to 54% run. So still very balanced, but a little bit, a little bit more passing actually in 2023 compared to 2022, which I think actually stands out. But looking at Tennessee's RPO game, we were running the RPO about 41% of the time. That was first in the SEC. And within our RPO game, we're running it 75% of the time, second in the SEC, and we're passing about 25% of the time, almost dead last in the SEC. Now, several reasons for that, I'm sure. Don't want to, do too much speculating or diving too deep into that. But let's talk about 2024. Only 374 passes. That's significantly less than 2022 and 2023. And we ran the football, obviously, significantly more, 584 runs. We had more total plays, too, 958. Now, Tennessee didn't run the tempo as much 2024, like not as much as we did in 2022. So how do we get more plays? Because our defense was a lot better. Okay, our defense was getting off the field and getting turnovers and all of that type of stuff. So that's why I've said so many times, Tennessee really doesn't need to run the tempo. Like, we don't have to do it. I think that Coach Heupel is going to find that sweet spot of we're going to slow things down some, but we'll also keep that tempo going because you don't want your defense to get gassed, especially whenever they're getting off the field. Don't make them come right back onto the field, right? Like, that doesn't really make any logical sense. And also, I think that because we're so talented, we can slow things down and get ourselves into the proper plays, make sure that we've got the proper matchups and all that we want. But that was about 39% pass compared to 61% run. That's crazy. To me, that's a little bit too run heavy, right? So obviously we kind of had to do that last season. But I think that that's going to change in 2025, excuse me. And we'll talk about that as we go throughout. So run pass option game, we did that about 35% of the time. So that's less than 2022 and 2023, but still first in the SEC. And we're running the football 64.5% of the time. Now look at that. That's 13th in the SEC this year, but we're passing it at about 36% of the time. That's now fourth. So the numbers flip-flopped. Things change. And I think that there's a few reasons for that. Number one is going to be, especially if you're looking at 2022 compared to 2024, Nico did not run the football as much as Hendon Hooker or as Joe Milton did. He just didn't. And I think that most of that was because the staff didn't really want him to. I don't think that they felt like he would hold up versus these guys in the SEC. But this season, I think they're going to use his legs a lot more. I also think that Nico is really the overall, probably, I'm not going to say that he's the better passer because he's not a better passer than Hendon Hooker. At least he wasn't last season, but he has the potential to be that this year. I think that he's the perfect mix of Hendon Hooker along with Joe Milton, where he's got a very strong arm, but he can also have that touch and things like that. So I think that, that's the big part of the reason that it looks like Tennessee actually passed the football more just from a percentage perspective coming out of our run pass option game than we did in previous years, just because we didn't necessarily run the football as much with Nico. So this is the SEC's RPO rankings, and it is in order based off of the teams that ran the most RPOs all the way down to who ran the least amount of RPOs. I know that some of y'all probably wanted to see how all this stacked up, so we'll go through this real quick. Next is the SEC's RPO run ranking. So these are the teams that ran the football the most within their RPOs. And last is going to be the RPO passing rankings. These are the teams that pass the football the most, within their RPO game. So you can see that all the teams up at the top, well, I guess just the top four, because Auburn's offense wasn't that good. Texas A&M's offense was good in spurts. I mean, you could see where it's going to get good at, but I mean, those are all really good offenses, right? So, it is important, I think, to be able to throw the football within your RPO game, but it's more important to find that balance. And that's something that Tennessee's doing a much better job with in 2024. And like I said, I think that it's going to get even more pronounced in 2025. All right, y'all. Now it's time to jump inside of the film room, and this one's going to be quick. We'll just go through this one play because it's a very simple concept. But I want for us to all be on the same page first. The reason that we just went through all those stats with Tennessee's offense and the RPO game is to highlight how important it is for the success of this offense, and also how I think critical it is to have a quarterback that can operate it the correct way. Now we had two here recently that I think did a very good job. Obviously, Hendon Hooker. I mean, he was just masterful. You know what I'm saying? Like, he was almost magic. Almost always made the perfect read, wasn't scared to use his legs. He was a dog. He would run through tackles. Wasn't the shiftiest guy, but he had a strong arm. He could throw on the run from inside of the pocket. And, he threw with great touch and timing and things like that. I think that Joe Milton operated this offense and, read the field better than people gave him credit for, especially understanding, the different reads and things that he was working with. I think that he did better than people gave him credit for. But Nico is really handcrafted for this whole offense because he's the best of both of those worlds. He's a guy that's big, he's strong, he's fast, he's faster than both of those two quarterbacks. His arm's not as strong as Joe Milton is, but it's very, very close. And he can also throw with that touch and with that timing. And towards the end of last season, he did a really good job with his reads. And he probably would have done a better job to start the season off, but the staff, I don't think, was going to let him run the football. So some of the reads might have looked like they were off just because the staff wasn't really cutting him loose. But in 2025, man, look, we got to let Nico ball, like I said before. We got to cut him loose. If we do that, then the ceiling for this offense is going to be absolutely astronomical. But let's talk about what we're looking at here on the screen. So this is versus Florida. They're in a 3-3-5 defense with the tight front. For those of y'all that care, it doesn't really matter for the sake of this video, but what actually does matter is that they have a 6-man box, and Tennessee has 6 blockers plus 2 potential runners, and that means that we have a very favorable box for us to run on. So any modern defense, the players that we see circled in red, any modern defense is going to have players that are going to be playing the run and the pass. Those are the ones that we want to try to put into a conflict. That's essentially who we're going to be reading within our run pass option games. So let's get to the next part of this. As far as the offensive line, there's a lot of different things that you can also do just to get extra numbers. And Tennessee does a great job with this, pulling the offensive lineman. So this is a pin pull technique. Left tackle, left guard are going to be pulling around to the right. Everyone else that's blocking, they're going to be blocking down to the left side. So that's again just another way for us to get some extra numbers within our running game. And somebody should have been able to get up to that second level or to that third level on that safety. But on this side of the field, what we're seeing is the actual like pass option, right? Well, I guess it's part of the run pass option because this is kind of like a triple threat. So number one, the player that's in red, that's the player that we're going to be reading. That's who we're targeting to put in conflict. And we know that we can hand the football off to Dylan Sampson, going to the right behind those offensive linemen pulling. And we can also, Nico can use his legs coming out to the left, but he also has the option to throw the football to our slot guy, who in this one is Squirrel White, circled in yellow. And Squirrel is going to just widen out towards that sideline to try to get that outside linebacker to either stay still, but, best case would be if that outside linebacker moves over to the left away from the box. And Nico doing the exact same thing. So let me also highlight this real quick. We're sending 2 threats at one player. What that tells me is that this is a play that Tennessee's intention was to run the football. So RPO is not necessarily always going to be a situation where the defense is going to dictate terms to the offense. If you have the play set up correctly, then you can get whatever you want out of that play. So I just wanted to kind of throw that out there. But yeah, this is a play that we wanted to hand the football off to Dylan Sampson going to the right. So here, right, we're seeing Nico going through his read. Now, if that outside linebacker goes inside of the box, Nico keeps it, and he's either going to run it himself or he's going to throw it right here to Squirrel White. But since that outside linebacker is just kind of standing there and he's not really engaging with the box, again, man, we have very, very favorable numbers, and we're going to hand it off to Dylan Sampson. But the main thing that I wanted to highlight with this, y'all, was first off, I wanted for y'all to understand how the RPOs work, but I also wanted to kind of draw up how I think the plays might look a little bit different in 2025, and something that we might see a little bit throughout spring. But I think that we could do something like this, where Squirrel White playing at slot can crack that outside linebacker. Nico keeps it, and he's got a guy, obviously, that's blocking for him What that's going to do, as soon as Squirrel comes down to crack, somebody from that third level, either that cornerback or the safety that's circled in red, they've got to come down right now because Nico's got the threat of his legs. Now, if it's the cornerback that actually comes down, we have our outside wide receiver one-on-one with the safety that's playing far to the inside. The fade, back shoulder fade, or throw it over the top to the end zone, or just a hitch, maybe even a slant, double move, whatever. There's a lot of different options. He's going to be open right there. And if that safety comes down, it might be even better because look at how the cornerback's playing. He's pretty much giving up inside leverage because his expectations is that he has inside help from his safety. But the safety has to come up and help out on Nico's legs. So now we have an outside wide receiver, one-on-one with the cornerback that's giving up the inside. He can run that post. And that should be absolutely wide open. But I mean, there's a million different things that you could do out of this. That's just like one little thing. We could also have Squirrel or that slot guy. He could run the slot fade. The outside wide receiver could come down and crack that outside linebacker and not even make it look like he's actually cracking. He can make it look like he's running a route or something. So that might be a better option for Nico to use his legs. But as long as Nico is kind of pressing towards that sideline, he's going to draw attention. And that means somebody's going to be open, whether it's the slot, whether it's the outside guy, or whether it's just Nico, on his own. So this is something that I think Nico would definitely thrive with. And I've seen so many plays from 2024 where this would have been deadly. I don't think that any team has an answer for this because the only way to stop it is you have to be able to play straight up man-to-man coverage. And, we're stretching the defense out horizontally and also vertically. We are to do that with how we line up, but also doing that with a little bit of pre-snap movement, post-snap movement, misdirection, with the quarterback that can just do it all. That's going to be deadly, I think, for Tennessee in 2025. So obviously, I think that Nico needs to use his legs a lot more in 2025 just to show that threat. If he can do that early on, then it's going to open things up a lot for our wide receivers down the field. And that's a big question mark for this team because I didn't get to see a whole lot, obviously, from our first spring practice. Just a few little minutes, but I was not overly impressed with the depth of that room. We'll see. Hopefully things look a little bit better on Monday and, we can see more of our wide receivers, but we will need at least one guy that can also be a real true home run threat from our wide receiver core. Now, if we have several players, obviously, I think that Mike's going to be really good. Brazel's the one that I'm really watching him very closely. I got to be hard on him just because I know that he can be absolutely unstoppable. He's another one very similar to like a Dante Thornton, 6'5", 200 plus pounds. He's going to be like 23 miles per hour and he can jump out of the gym. So he could be a major problem. Braylon Staley, all of the freshmen, obviously Boo playing some at slot. We got Jefferson transferring in. Do we go out and add one more guy? I think that we might need to, but we really only need, I would say, if we have two consistent guys on the outside that can win one-on-one matchups, whenever Tennessee's running our RPO game, then our offense is going to be pretty much impossible to stop. And it's not just about those guys. We could also use our running backs in some different ways, tight ends in some different ways. And we've got a lot of depth at both of those spots. The offensive line looks good. So it's just something else, y'all, that I've been going through, like watching film. I've been thinking about. I wanted to share it with you. But let me know your thoughts about it down in the comment section. And as always, please do make sure to like and subscribe to the channel. And we'll see y'all tomorrow. Thanks. Peace.